So I'm gonna continue with the Blame Game Red White Commander deck from Murder at Karlov Manor. I already went through the first half in a previous um, video where one of the suggested commanders was Nelly Borka, Impulsive Accuser, um, and then this was roughly how much I went through in the previous video. I have a little bit more to go. Half of this is probably going to be land though. Frontier Warmonger. It's a 4/4 human warrior for 3 in a mountain. Whenever one or more creatures attacks one of your opponents or planeswalker they control, those creatures gain menace until end of turn, which is actually pretty cool that, one of your creatures is giving, attacking creatures an ability. Next we have Kazul, Tyrant of the Cliffs. It's a 5/4 legendary creature. It's a Orc Warrior. So where it's a legendary creature, it could be a commander, just not for this deck where it's mono red. This creature is mono red, and this deck's red white. It costs 3 and 2 mounds. Whenever a creature an opponent controls attacks alone, the defending play if you're the defending player, create a 3/3 or creature token unless that creature's controller pays 3. So that's pretty cool. You get a creature for being attacked unless your opponent decides to spend 3 mana, which, kind of would prevent them from playing some instants or sorceries during the combat stage, so one of those trade-off things. Spectacular Showdown. It's a sorcery for 1 in a mountain. Put a double strike counter on target creature, then goad each creature that had a double strike counter put on it this way. And in parentheses, it explains that. So until your next turn, those creatures attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. And then, so the initial cost or normal cost is 1 in a mountain, but has an overload um, cost of 4 and 3 mounds. You may cast a spell for its overload cost. If you do, change target in the text for each. So, it would, for if you're playing the overload cost, it would read put a double strike counter on each creature, then goad each creature that had a double strike counter put on it this way. So you, if you have the mana, you're basically having in a um, game with more than 2 people, you're basically saying, hey, all of player A's creatures can't attack player B, but they can attack player C. Depending on which player you are. So you're basically getting your opponents to deal damage to each other. So that's kind of cool. Vengeful Ancestor. It's a 3/4 Spirit Dragon for 2 and 2 mountains. Has flying. When Vengeful Ancestor enters the battlefield or attacks, go target creature. It also happens to have the reminder text in parentheses. Until your next turn, that creature attacks each combat if able and attacks a player other than you if able. Whenever a goaded creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to its controller. So that's actually pretty cool too because you're, in addition to getting, opponent's creatures to attack a different opponent, and not you, you're also getting opponents to be dealt damage for attacking someone other than you. Anya, Merciless Angel, the 4/4 legendary creature that's an angel. It costs 3, a mountain, and a plains. So where it's a legendary creature and it's both colors of this particular deck, this could be a potential commander if you didn't like um, the one that they kind of suggest by having that one up, the one that's up front when you open this. So this one, Anya Merciless Angel, where it's an angel, kind of almost seems like it's a given that it's gonna have flying. Anya Merciless Angel gets +3/+3 for each opponent whose life total is less than half their starting life total. As long as opponent's life total is less than half their starting life total, Anya has destructible. So this kind of rewards you for getting your opponents down in life, which, depending on the deck you're going against, may or may not be easy, but is kind of cool. Like, oh, hey, you're doing good. Here's a reward. Boros Reckoner. It's a 3/3 Minotaur Wizard, and it costs 3, and then each of the mana symbols are red or white, so you could pay any combination of, um, you know, red or white, red or white, red or white. Um, so depending on how much mana you have out, you might pay all 3 red, you might play all 3 white, or you might do a combination of the two, maybe 2 red, 1 white, or vice versa. Um, so that's kind of interesting that you have that flexibility. Whenever Boros Reckoner is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target. And then you can pay either a mountain or a plains. Boros Reckoner gains first strike until end of turn. So in addition to kind of saying, oh, this guy's receiving damage, deal that much damage to another target. You can also give him first strike for when you're attacking or blocking, and maybe have him survive because it's dealing damage for you know with first strike. Deflecting Palm. It's an instant for a mountain and the plains. the next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, prevent that damage. If damage is prevented this way, deflecting palm deals that much damage to that source's controller, so that's actually a pretty good ability for how cheap it is. You're potentially, um, you know, preventing yourself from either losing or at the very least not taking, any damage or having a creature not die, and then you're redirecting it to the opponent that's trying to deal damage to you. Gizzle, Blade of Gold Knight, the 5/5 legendary creature angel for 4 mound and 2 point, or yeah, 2 points. So where it's a legendary creature and it's both colors of this deck, this is another potential commander given for 7 mana, and um, 3 of those manas being mana symbols, of 2 different colors, may or may not be as easy to get out, depending on your mana you end up playing in this deck. If you are just playing a land a turn, no mana rocks or anything, this will take a while to get out. If you have some mana fixing, maybe you get out sooner, but there's potentially better commanders in this deck depending on your playset and how you upgrade this deck. But yeah, it's a 5/5. It has flying and first strike. If a source would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, that source deals double the damage to that player or permanent instead, which is obviously pretty good. If a source would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent half that damage rounded up. Also pretty good. So, it's worth how much it costs. It just might be a mid to late game card depending on your mana. Ancient Stone Idol. It's a 12/12 artifact creature, a golem for 10. Has flash. This spell costs 1 less for each attacking creature. Has trample. When Ancient Stone Idol dies, create a 6/12 colorless construct artifact creature token with trample. So not only do you get a big guy with trample and it has flash, so you could play it on your opponent's turn if you want, but when it dies, you get another big creature, given it's not 12/12, it's only a 6/12. But both have trample, so like for the cost, you end up having one creature to then get a second creature if it dies versus getting exiled. So Simulacrum, it's a 2/2 artifact creature, a golem for 4. When Simulacrum enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. When Simulacrum dies, you may draw a card. So, the mana cost to the value seems about average. Maybe not as much as I'd like to see, but it's okay. It's a creature, so you got body on the battlefield. You get to search your library and put a basic land on the battlefield. So, you're thinning your deck, getting an extra land per turn. And if this guy dies, you draw a card. Like, it's good, it's not amazing, but it does stuff. Steel Hellkite. It's a 5/5 artifact creature, a dragon for 6. Has flying. You can pay 2 steel. Hellkite gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And where that's not a tapping ability, it just has the mana to activate that ability, I guess. You can pay that at 2 however many times you have mana to do. So if you end up paying 10, you'd give it +1/+0 5 separate times. So it'd get +5/+0 instead of +1/+0 for only doing it once. You can pay X, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X whose controller was dealt combat damage by Steel Hellkite this turn, activate only once each turn. So that one has, a specific clause saying you can only activate that ability once, but you're still destroying creatures if this guy dealt damage to an opponent, so that's pretty cool. Tomb of Legends. It's an artifact for 2. Tomb of Legends enters the battlefield with a page counter on it. Whenever your commander enters the battlefield or attacks, put a page counter on Tomb of Legends. You can pay 1 and tap, remove a page counter from Tomb of Legends, draw a card. So, it's your draw engine. You potentially might be waiting to get more page counters than what the centers was, depending on when you put your commander out, but at the same time, your opponents might have removal, so, maybe you get 1 or 2 draws, maybe you get more depending on the game. Castle Ardeville, the land, it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control the planes. It taps for planes, but you can also pay 2 and 2 planes and tap this, create a 1/1 human creature token. So, in addition to being able to tap for a color, you could also be creating a creature token, so kind of beneficial later on in the game when you have more mana and you're like, oh, what do I do? Oh, let's tap this and some mana to make a creature. Exotic Orchard. It's a land that lets you tap for 1 of any color a land an opponent controls could produce. Furycom Snarl. It's a land that when it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a mountain or plains card from your hand. If you don't, Furycom Snarl enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps for either a mountain or a plains. Here, Keep. It's a legendary land. It taps for 1 colorless, or you can pay 1 and a mountain, tap, create a 0/1 red kobold creature token named Kobold of Keep. Labyrinth of Scapos, the land that taps for a colorless, and you can pay 4 and tap to remove target attacking or blocking creature from combat. So, I mean, for 4 to remove a creature from combat, you're kind of dealing with one of your opponent's creatures you don't want to deal with. Needle Spires. It's a land. Needle Spires enters the battlefield tapped. It taps for either a mountain or a plains, and you can also pay 2 a mountain and a plains. Needle Spires becomes a 2/1 red and white elemental creature with double strike until end of turn. It's still a land. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. The um, ability that costs 4 makes this land a creature, but you're not tapping it when you're making a creature, so you'd be able to attack or block with it without having to use something to untap it. Scavenger ground or grounds. It's a land, and more specifically, the land's a desert, because some cards care about deserts. You tap for a colorless, or you can pay 2 and tap this, sacrifice a desert, exile all graveyards. So if you're milling your opponent, or your opponent just has a lot of creatures that have been killed and gone to the graveyard, or your opponent has a lot of instants and sorceries in their graveyard, this is a great way to, like, oh yeah, let's exile all the graveyards. You're not gonna get anything back from your graveyard. That's pretty cool. Slayer's Stronghold, the land that taps for a colorless. You can also pay a mountain and a plains and tap this. Target creature gets +2, +0, and gains vigilance and haste until end of turn. So kind of helpful. You put, if you have a creature that has summoning sickness, oh, I'm gonna give it +2, +0, vigilance and haste. It can attack the turn it comes into play. Next we have Temple of Triumph. It's a land. Temple of Triumph enters the battlefield tapped. When Temple of Triumph enters the battlefield, scry 1, and it taps for either a mountain or a plains. I like the temple lands because of the scry ability. It allows you to um, kind of see what's next, and if that's going to be the draw you want, or if you want to put that card on the bottom to maybe get a, like, have a odds of a better draw next turn. Throne of High City. It's a land that taps for colorless. You can pay 4, tap it, sacrifice Throne of High City. You become the monarch. Um, I don't really understand the monarch um, dynamic very well, other than some cards care about whether you're the monarch or an opponent's a monarch. They do certain things. Um, so generally, I don't play decks that have that ability in it, but um, I could see how some decks might be beneficial with that. War Room, the land that taps for a colorless, you can pay 3 and tap this. Pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity. Draw a card. So seems kind of a lot to draw a card, because you're not only paying 3 mana, but you're also paying an amount of life to draw a card. There seems like better ways, but if you don't have that um, draw a card in your hand or, something else on the battlefield to draw. It works in a pinch. Ghostly Prison. It's an enchantment for 2 in the planes. Creatures can't attack you unless their controllers pay 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. So it's a good way to kind of punch your opponents for attacking. If they don't have enough mana, they're going to be limited by how many creatures they can attack you with. Gideon's Sacrifice. It's an instant for planes. Choose a creature or planeswalker you control. All damage that would be dealt this turn to you and permanents you control is dealt to the chosen permanent instead. And in parentheses, it says if it's still on the battlefield. So I guess they want to make sure you're choosing a legal target or, um, if, if you're redirecting damage that, um, someone's not destroying that creature or planeswalker to then have you try to redirect damage to something that's not there, I guess. Martial Impetus. It's an enchantment aura for 2 in the planes. Enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 and is goaded. And it has a reminder text in parentheses. It attacks each combat if able and attacks a player other than you if able. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, each other creature that's attacking one of your opponents gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So a good way to kind of get your opponents to fight each other and not you, I guess, and buff your opponent's creatures that are doing that. Orzhov Advocus. It's a 1/4 human advisor for 2 in the planes. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player may put 2/1/1 counters on a creature they control. If a player does, creatures that player controls can attack you or a planeswalker you control until your next turn. So it's one of those um, pro and con things where yes, your opponents might be getting +1/+1 counters on their creatures, but they're also not able to attack you until your next turn. So, um, just kind of a trade off, I guess. Seal of Cleansing. It's an enchantment for 1 in the planes. Sacrifice Seal of Cleansing, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So, where it's an enchantment that's you're sacrificing it to get the result you're looking for. It almost feels like it could have been an instant or sorcery unless you have cards that care about you sacrificing stuff. Soul Snare. It's an enchantment for a planes. And then you can pay a plane, sacrifice Soul Snare, exile a target creature that's attacking you or a planeswalker you control. Um, so at that point, you're paying 2 planes and sacrificing the enchantment. I almost feel like this one could have been an instant or sorcerer too, but again, if you have stuff that cares about sacrificing stuff, maybe it would be okay. And, where, um, you're playing it to be able to exile something your opponent controls, they may or may not use removal to try to deal with this before you're able to activate it. Vow of Duty, the enchantment aura for 2 in the planes, enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +2/+2, has vigilance, and can't attack you or planeswalkers you control. So at that point, you could either put on your one of your creatures or an opponent's creature and to buff it, and then it also can attack you. So um, depending on the board state, will depend on whose creature you're putting it on. Wall of Omens. It's a 0/4 wall for 1 in the planes. Has Defender. When Wall of Omens enters the battlefield, draw a card. So, an okay amount of toughness to block something and a draw ability. It seems like just an okay average um, value for the mana cost. So, um, may or may not be one of the cards that would get changed out if you were upgrading this deck. Curse of Opulence. It's a enchantment aura curse for a mound. Enchant player. When enchant player is attacked, create a goaded token. Each opponent attacking that player does the same. A goaded token is an artifact with sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color. Rite of the Raging Storm. It's an enchantment for 3 and 2 mountains. Creatures named Lightning Rage or can attack you or planeswalkers you control. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player creates a 5/1 elemental creature token named Lightning Rager. It has trample, haste, and at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice this creature. So, kind of decent because you're getting your opponents to giving your opponents a creature with um, trample and haste that has to attack someone else other than you, and it then gets sacrificed at the end of the turn. Not as helpful if you're doing a 1 versus 1 commander game versus maybe a pod of 3, 4, 5, but um, one of those trade-offs, I guess, of how many players you play with. Shiny Impetus. It's an enchantment aura for 2 in a mountain. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and is goaded. The reminder text tells you it attacks each combat if able and attacks a player other than you if able. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, you create a treasure token. In the reminder text, it's an artifact with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color. Battle of Lightning. The enchantment aura for 2 in a mounds. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2, has first strike, and can't attack you or a planeswalker you control. So similar to the white one that gave +2/+2 in vigilance, but this in this case it's first strike instead of vigilance. Um, both can't attack you if you happen to put it on an opponent's creature, I guess. Arcane Signet. So it's an artifact that costs 2 that allows you to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Um, it kind of acts as a mana rock, given it's specifically for commander, so it's not like Soul Ring that you could use in a non-commander deck. Bloodthirsty Blade. It's a artifact equipment for 2. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and is goaded. The reminder text says it attacks each combat if able and attacks a player other than you if able. And you would pay 1 to attach Bloodthirsty Blade to target creature an opponent controls. Activate only as a sorcery. So, um, the artifact equipments are kind of interesting because it has a cost to put it on the battlefield and a cost to equip it. So you don't, it's not like the enchantment creatures that you have to pay the full amount to play it in one turn. You could, put it onto the battlefield one turn, play the equipment, the next turn if you wanted. Bellwar Stone. It's an artifact that lets you tap for 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. So another mana rock, and in this case, um, it's a color your opponent controls. So if you're playing a black green deck and your opponent is playing, um, I don't know, a blue red deck, you could tap this for either blue or red to play one of their cards if you had something to kind of steal an opponent's card or, play one of your opponent's cards somehow. And obviously, you wouldn't have lands of your opponent's color in your deck, so that kind of helps with playing your opponent's cards. Mind Stone. It's an artifact that lets you tap for a colorless, and you can also pay 1 and tap it, sacrifice Mind Stone to draw a card. So for 2 mana, it's okay. You're um, paying for 1 color or tapping for 1 colorless. Um, Soul Ring, you're paying 1 to tap for 2, so Soul Ring, you're getting more mana that costs less, but Mind Stone, you could pay 1 and sacrifice it to draw a card, so, maybe that card draw in certain situations might be more beneficial. And ironically, we were talking about Soul Ring, and that's the next card in order. So Soul Ring costs 1 for, it's an artifact that costs 1, and it taps for 2 colorless, so it's another mana rock in here. Talisman of Conviction. It's an artifact that costs 2. You can tap for a colorless, or you could also tap for a mound or planes. Talisman of Conviction deals 1 damage to you. So, you don't get punished for tapping for the colorless, but if you need a mound or a planes, that particular color land, but you have this, you could cast something of that color and get punished the 1 damage, which life's a resource, so may or may not be beneficial depending on, you know, how board state looks. Thought Vessel. An artifact that costs 2. You have no maximum hand size, and you can tap this for 1 colorless. Access Tunnel. It's a land that lets you tap for a colorless. You can pay 3 and tap. Target creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked this turn. Ash. It's a land that lets you tap for a colorless. And it also has basic land cycling 1. So you would pay 1 mana, discard this card, search your library for a basic land, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. Boss Garrison. It's a land. Boss Garrison enters the battlefield tapped. When Boss Garrison enters the battlefield, return a land you control to its owner's hand. So that might be good in the landfall deck, but or anything that would have triggers for land entering the battlefield, but otherwise that's really almost a setback because you're returning 1 land to your hand and this land's entering tapped so like this one you couldn't tap for mana until your next turn unless you have something to untap it. Given it does tap for a mountain and a plains, so it's one of the lands that does tap for 2. So kind of a trade-off, but situationally could work against you. Commander Tower. It's a land that taps for 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Escape Tunnel. I feel like we've had a couple of cards with tunnel in it. It's a land that you can tap and sacrifice Escape Tunnel, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Or you could tap, sacrifice, Escape Tunnel. Target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. So it's not tapping for mana unless you have something that says lands you control can tap for XYZ. But, I mean, it's a utility land that lets you search for whatever kind of basic land you needed or make a creature, um, you know, power 2 or less unblockable. So again, situationally beneficial. Myriad Landscape. It's a land. Myriad Landscape enters the battlefield tapped. Tap to add a colorless. You can pay 2 and tap. Sacrifice Myriad Landscape. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards that share a land type. Put them on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So you could either tap for like the generic mana, the number on number of the mana cost of a card, or you could use this to thin your deck and get 2 basic lands of the same color by sacrificing it. So, um, kind of okay. It won't help you with, color casting of cards, but otherwise it's okay. Reliquantly Tower, so land, another one that allows you to have no maximum hand, and it taps for a colorless. Um, I really haven't seen a lot of stuff in this deck that you would necessarily need no maximum hand size, but situationally that could be beneficial, I guess, if your opponent casts Peer into the Abyss, which is a black card that you would draw, I think, like half your library. Um, that could be beneficial not to have a maximum hand size, I guess. Rogue's Passage. It's a land that lets you tap for a colorless. You can also pay 4 and tap. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. So that's actually good that it doesn't specify, a limiting ability. We had a couple of lands that, is power 2 or less, and the other one I think was power 3 or less. So, like, you could make your big guy unblockable without this one. Sunhome, Fortune of Legion. It's a land that taps for a colorless, or you can pay 2, a mountain and a plains, tap. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn. So, either a colorless or making a creature double strike that's, situationally beneficial. Temple of False God. It's a land that taps for 2 mana. Activate only if you control 5 or more lands. So, um, you're waiting a few turns before you can actually use it, but then once you can use it, you're getting 2 colorless instead of 1 like you would with a lot of lands. And then we get to the basic lands, all the plains and mountains you would have in the deck. Um, so there's only 9 plains and 7 mountains because of the amount of non-basic lands in this deck. So that was between this video and the first video I did. That was all the cards, all the 100 cards, and then you have several tokens and one particular card that talks about what you would do um, on your turn and popular formats. Um, so as far as tokens, I already talked about the one that was a 6/12 with trample that you got when um, the 12/12 artifact creature was flash and trample died. And in addition to that, there's some human tokens, some soldier tokens, some gold tokens, and then on the back of the tokens, there's a couple more soldier tokens, some org tokens, um, the cobbles of Kier Keep token, which I think it was a land that created this 0/1 guy. Um, it has a Lightning Rager token from the enchantment that made these 5/1 trample haste guys that were sacrificed at the end of turn. Treasure token. And then on the back of one of the tokens, you have the monarch at the beginning of your end step draw a card. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, its controller becomes a mark. So, I mean, I don't 100% understand the mark mechanics, so I don't always play with those kind of cards, but if you understand it, great. It can have some fun interaction. So hopefully you found some value and consider checking out some of my other content. Thanks.